everybody, I'm Charles Morgan from Comic Week, and I'm with Norman. What did you do, Norman?
I didn't do anything to Norman. Hi, I'm Bree. I'm one of the store owners at Alpha. Unfortunately, Norman cannot be here today, so I am a tinier, more girly replacement.
And a very knowledgeable one at that. So we're going to go over this week's comics and see what we have coming out. This, I thought last week was a big week. We did like a 20-minute long video.
Oh yeah, no.
But this week seems like it's just as big.
It is quite large. Like, we pretty much are filling up our friend almost completely to capacity. So, yeah.
So let's see what we got this week. You got a really interesting Fantastic Four.
Yep.
People. This isn't your standard cover. You got to look closely this week, guys.
Look at the little fun little red Carnage influences. It's supposed to be, there's like a bonus page that's going to tell you a little bit about the new Carnage that's in there. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it like super quickly, but that is the whole idea, is that it's going to reference the new Carnage series that's going to be coming out pretty soon.
Yeah,
now.
and keep in mind, like, this is this version was seeded in the normal order, so your comic book shop didn't necessarily order a certain amount of one and a certain amount of other. So how many Fantastic Fours do you guys?
I don't think we have that many. Like, it's just a couple.
Just a couple. So this is like this is like the why you go to your shop the minute it opens kind of comic situation, because it's not going to be there tomorrow at the end of the day. So. This is a good month to pick up on Road of Bones. Issue 1 sold pretty well. Issue 2's out. This is a Trans-Siberian quest. It's got a supernatural element. One of the things I like about this comic, really, when you break it down, is it is very atmospheric, and you're seeing things in this comic, and here's a great example, that you just don't see it. We talk about world building a lot in comics, but most people haven't seen like rugged landscapes and things like that, like based in the real world. A tiny bit of a supernatural element to it. But this is a very beautiful, very chilling, haunting type of story about a prison break. Of course, nobody wants to be in a Russian gulag in Siberia, so but it turns out that might be a safer place for the characters of this. And so issue 2 is out. You can probably still get issue 1, so it's not too late to get into that series.
All right. Then another one that we're going to showcase is going to be Rolled and Told. I'm a big fan of this for people that like table gaming and kind of want something that's going to give them kind of some tips and tricks that'll be just a little bit more extra ambiance to their storylines. Plus, it's a cute little comic. There's little cute bits of art in it, and it can be a really fun read.
Right. It's $8. This is like how you get your taste in it. Last week we covered that big hardback.
Yep, the giant tome of Rolled and Told.
Did you guys sell out of that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I ordered more, but we are out of the big book.
Yeah, it's a reference quality material if you're into tabletop RPG gaming, really. So if you're into Thor, this is an issue you might want to get. There's a little hammer situation going on, and also if you look at one of the variant covers, there's an arm situation. Thor's been using different hammers lately, and this is, again, a War of the Realms tie-in. So if the hammer he picks up in this issue becomes a major big deal, this might be the comic issue you want to have, because it may be interesting to collectors down the road. So that's Thor number 14 in the current series.
All right. Another one that I'm just excited about because I have no idea. I have no context for this book. It's Samurai Grandpa. He looks very sad, so I'm assuming this is probably not going to be a very, joyful romp. There's probably going to be some sort of dealing with past choices type things. But the art is actually really neat looking. I'm a fan of stuff that might be, a little bit unusual, personally. I either like to read really fluffy things or then just really depressing, strange things. So it seems like he's gonna have a rough day.
Yeah, OG Chan's got a little blood on that sword, so he's already got a little bit of work done.
Yeah, it seems like he's not exactly having the best time ever.
If you're a fan of Jeff Lemire, I'm a big fan of Jeff Lemire. You probably have read Descender and many other works of his, but Ascender number 3 comes out. Every issue of this series and its predecessor is like watching multiple panels of art unfold from you. This is a watercolor by Dustin Nguyen, which is quite remarkable, and he's created a young female protagonist who's very interesting and very Very compelling. You know, you want to root for her. Of course, the big baddie is this like vampire witch. I mean, she's like cruel and grotesque, and so it's sort of like, you know, that conflict between you know, those who want freedom and to live their lives and to use technology, and that sort of repressive regime that wants to keep everybody down so that they can lord over the universe. So again, Ascender #3. The first 2 issues sold pretty well, I think. And
oh yeah, no, they sold really well.
You don't see them too much.
Next is going to be Spawn, Road to 300. Spawn was actually the very first comic book I ever read. And when I say read, I looked at the pictures and thought it was really cool because I didn't know how to read. So Spawn for me is always one of those books that I'll come back to intermittently. Angela I was a big fan of, and of course she's no longer in Spawn. She's now trotting around in the Marvel Universe, but it's still really cool. You got a lot of really interesting art that's going to be coming with this book, and then once we hit 300, I can't remember how many covers there's going to be, but I think there's like at least 4.
Maybe 300 covers.
I hope not. That's a lot of covers.
You know, I remember buying Spawn 1, which is quite amazing. You know, it's when we look at comics today, and I mean, the books typically are beautiful. They're printed on mostly decent paper stock. You kind of don't realize how much comic books sucked in the 90s. You know, the print quality, it was really bad at Marvel and DC. It's almost like they had not developed at all since the 60s. And when the Image comics came out, like Spawn especially, I mean, they were just gorgeous.
It was gorgeous books. And like when I was a little kid, my big thing was you have his cloaks going through panels and like weird green slime goo and terrifying demon clowns, because I was terrified of clowns, and so it's like, yes, of course that should be the bad guy. So it's a little special place, and I will definitely be getting 300 when it comes out.
I find it ironic though that he's going back to these Marvel covers, the thing that they basically rebelled against, and he's going back to it.
I feel like it kind of makes sense to have those little bits of homage when you're ever having something where you're kind of going back to the beginning, when you're having these milestone issues.
Right.
It gives everybody who kind of knows the history a little, like, they feel like they have a little in to be like, oh, hey, I know what's happening here. And that's just that extra little fun bit.
Now, speaking about how much comics have really changed in the last 30 years, I mean, if you just go from a design standpoint,
oh yeah,
you go like just the use of typography, the scale of it, even the covers themselves. I mean, this again is the beautification, if you will, of comics. I mean, a lot of people may not look at today's period as sort of a high period of comics. I think they're wrong. But you know, you're seeing high-level design, a variety of stories that you wouldn't have gotten 20, 30 years ago. You know, it's sort of a creator's fantasy land, really, when you think about the ideas that get greenlit today. But what's your favorite bit of Isola?
So Isola for me is one of my favorite things about it is just the composition of the world, because everything in the book is bleeding into this idea. Like, even the credits are done in a particular way to have that feel of the book. So it's all very well thought out, and even the panel sequences is very much thought out to like how this world's being portrayed, which I super like, because when I was younger, I was really big into kind of like full, chunky, huge novels where it's like, okay, you have maps and all this stuff, but you feel like all of that's being condensed into this one comic book issue by issue, which is really neat.
Yeah, this type of book really emotes. You know, it's like you can have panel after panel with no dialogue, no narrative, and it's really, when you do that, the strength of the comic has to lie in the visual storytelling, and this is like majorly world building.
Oh yeah, and just color choice is great. I'm a sucker for if you're doing any type of color blocking where emotions are changing based off of what colors are being utilized, and so it's just a great book to kind of have a all-around experience versus just reading something.
Right, and another example to me of like high-end design on the cover is this one here. This is Rob Sheridan's High Level. It's a Vertigo title. You know, Vertigo is going away apparently now. By the end of the year, they're going to sunset it. Jim Lee says that they're not going to cancel any books, though. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the books aren't going to end at a number. Just, but anyway, Rob Sheridan's High Level is a post-apocalyptic kind of story about a woman who is reluctantly put on a quest to deliver a girl to this city called High Level, where people are supposed to be ascendant. and she has special powers. She's sort of a military-grade weapon, really genetically modified person. And so there's a lot of mystery behind what her deal is in the story, and whether or not there's somebody who's worthy of taking custody of her once she gets a high level. I'm excited about this, and actually this cover I think is really cool. It's sort of...
Yeah, it has a nice like stark contrast to it, that all the colors are very purposeful on what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and so the arrows to show you like what direction is the story going to take.
Yeah.
What do you got?
So, War of the Realms is wrapping up. It was the big Marvel to do, a lot of things happening in a lot of different places. You have Daredevil who's doing different things, and Spider-Man who's doing completely different things, and everybody's kind of going all over the place and kind of converging into this kind of one end. A lot of those side stories are going to be finishing up as well, besides just the main title. I'm going to catch up with this title. I had started off with Asgardians of the Galaxy, which I really love because, again, Angela, I'm a fan. But I fell off simply because of time. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on that I've heard in these books, and they look fantastic. But it's just sitting down and just focusing on something for more than 10 seconds because I'm kind of Magpie-esque. So, yeah, it seems like they're great books, and it's going to be a really neat one to kind of go through and finally read it all now that it's done.
So what's the overall vibe you've gotten from your readers? I mean, do they feel like this War of the Realms story is going to be one of the classic Marvel stories, or?
So for the most part, it's definitely getting a less intense reception as like Secret Empire. That was definitely either you were a big fan of Secret Empire or you really weren't. This is definitely much more positive in the sense that it's more, I'm enjoying reading it, I actually don't mind having to buy the X other copies because it's actually adding to the storyline, I don't just feel like it's shoehorned in. It's still a big Marvel event, so there's a lot of different stuff going different ways,
right.
But it seems like it's a little bit more focused on the actual storyline from what I've been told by my customers.
It just seems for me like the use of runes and the typography of the title seems like high fantasy, sort of like Middle Earth element going on, and it just seems weird for me to conceptualize Spider-Man living in such a universe. Or
I mean, it's one of those things that you also have a team up with Red Sonja and Spider-Man was a thing. So like weirder things have happened in the comic universe. For me, it's just kind of like, okay, we're going back to Fantasyland for a bit. That's coolios. I mean, what was it, 1806, where they're going back to historical times and doing various things. At this point with comics, it's like, Predator and Archie hanging out, we're good. As long as everyone's happy and it seems like it's entertaining, I'm pro it as long as that's happening.
Right. I guess if you're at this point, if you're demanding realism in your superhero comic books, you're probably in the wrong hobby.
Yeah, probably.
All right. So one of my favorite titles that's been out in the last couple months has been IDW's Bobby Kernow's Ghost Tree. I've just seen that for the first time. That's nice.
Oh yeah, the back is.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite comics for a few reasons. One, I think it's just dripping with melancholia and sort of regrets, but not in a I did bad things, but more like what happens when time slips by and relationships you have with people didn't turn out like the way they could have and stuff like that. And so it's like a really beautiful ghost story. And one of the things about it is it's a mini series, but it doesn't feel like it's been written like one. I lobby the creator of this comic to keep going, making this ongoing series, because really when you're dealing with like spirits and like a tree where like people from all sorts of past eras congregate to talk to the living, I mean, there's an unlimited number of stories you could tell, and for a receptive, like a live person, they could sort of help people through these issues and then learn a lot about themselves in the process. So far, the story has sort of been geared towards a family story, but we will see like he has met up with a girl that he dated when he was a teenager, and he moved to America, and they sort of lost touch with each other. But he didn't know the reason they lost touch and she stopped writing is she had a sudden heart attack. And then he ended up getting married, and now he's in a position in his life where his marriage isn't working out. Mm-hmm. So he's revisiting sort of that hope he had as a younger person and meeting her. So it's really sort of like a sweet, romantic, and sad at the same time. And one of the things I loved it so much, I actually went out and bought this panel, or this page.
Pretty.
Yeah, from this is from issue 2 where they actually meet. for the first time. And just you see, like just in the line art, just how much emotion goes into that comic.
yeah.
So it's really quite amazing. And I believe you can still find some of these panels. I don't know if they're all sold out yet. I try to buy some comic book original art because I think it's like a great buy, you know, if you're a real true collector. But yeah, I mean, this was beautiful. And actually, it was pretty cheap. It was only $100.
Yeah, that's not bad at all,
So-
considering how much work has to go in it.
Because this is already in the third printing for the first
It's a third
issues.
printing for the first issue. It's been selling really well. It's been selling so well, I haven't got a chance to read it.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. I'll
Yeah,
I'll lend you my copies if you want.
So I don't have to keep waiting for something to like magically appear. All right, so this is gonna be Wonder Woman. She's going through stuff like usual. She's having to deal with a lot of different things that are going on. Wonder Woman's always a great character in my opinion, if only because those epitome characters sometimes get kind of sidelined because it's like, oh, this person's perfect, but in human history we need those characters to kind of like try and strive to be. So having characters like her is always a great one to have. It's the Supermans, it's the Wonder Womans, the ones that are kind of like, okay, no, we're not perfect, but at least we can attempt to like get close. Have a Mary Poppins-esque superhero. That'd probably be my dream.
Yeah, and I would venture to say I think Wonder Woman as a DC cinematic universe is probably the best DC comic movie that maybe has been made yet.
Yeah, no. I also super did enjoy Aquaman, but I
Yeah.
also saw it on Mother's Day, so I feel like I don't know if that also like adds an extra level to it,
Right.
Because there's a very mom-centric storyline undertone in that. So then seeing it with your mom for the first time, it's kind of like that little touchy-feely, like oh, like extra thing
Right.
to it. But I do think the Wonder Woman movie was great. I think Aquaman was pretty awesome, and I think DC's biggest problem sometimes is they try and take things the same direction that Batman goes because Batman's so popular.
Right.
But not every character can be Batman. Batman fills a very important role that he fills. Wonder Woman's not Batman. Superman's not Batman. They're very different. And at this point in kind of modern mythology, if you will, they fill very specific roles, and it gets kind of complicated when you try to deviate too far from that just because you have so much history of them being a particular way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and this is also somebody coming from, I like Adam West as Batman. He's my Batman.
Oh, I love Adam West
Right,
Batman.
so when I see the Batman get beat up all the time kind of shtick, it just kind of wears on me.
Well, my favorite Catwoman's actually Eartha Kitt.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of Eartha Kitt as a kid, like stormy weather, that sort of type of feel. So I just love her like meow growl thing she did.
Right.
That's just so uniquely her. Because if any other actress tried to do it, they would just look really dumb. But with her, it's like, this is so cool.
Right, the originator.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you kind of like sort of a supernatural story mixed with like Breaking Bad, set in New Orleans, you probably already read Parish by Colin Bunn, but we're up to issue 10 now. It's like stuff's really starting to happen. Three factions who want to control this drug that is taken from the bones of the dead and allows the user to relive moments in their lives. So if you have like a rock star and you get their bones and you can create this drug, you can imagine yourself on stage at a rock concert, you know, basically living vicariously through other people as a hallucinogenic experience. You don't make it correctly, it disfigures you and turns you into a monster that doesn't have a very long life.
Oh,
so
gosh.
there's these three basically gangs that are going head to head, trying to take each other out, take each other's operation out, and manipulate or you know, basically leverage a piece where they come out on top. So I've already read this. You know, Boom Studios gives us access early. It's a really cool, very violent, action-filled issue. So if you're a fan of the series or kind of feel like you like that Breaking Bad, zombies, drug of the dead kind of thing, you want to pick this up. There's a trade already for Bone Parish?
Yes, I think the first trade's already
Yeah.
out. Because what issue are we on? We're on like,
Yeah, we're on 10 now.
10,
Yeah, so
yeah,
there's
so
a trade for the first issue. The first issue I think sells for like $20 now in the secondary market, so it might be hard. You won't find it in a comic book shop unless they have back issues that they are charging you more than cover for. But yeah, you definitely want to pick it up if you're into that kind of story.
And then last but not least,
yeah, so
Batman Damned.
So here we go. We're going to talk real quick about DC Black Label. If you've got the first issue before everyone noticed, you know why that became notorious. I can't really tell what they did to this series after that issue, after that became a thing, because it just seems like it doesn't have the same punch.
Well, they had to do a lot of re-edits. There was a lot of, okay, here's my book. No, you have to redo this XXX. And that is why this book has taken so long to come out, because they didn't even know originally if they were going to even have number 2 happen.
Wow.
Initially.
It was
like
that bad.
there was a lot of controversy. As a store, we were sitting here waiting like, okay, I have customers that want to read this series. They're still interested in it. It's not like everybody's freaking out. But it just, everybody was freaking out. So it's been a while, because it was only supposed to be a 3-parter, so this is going to be the last part of it, to our knowledge, obviously, at this moment. But yeah, so having this just come out at all is vaguely surprising, because there were a couple of months where it's like, nope, number 2 is not going to happen, and number 3 is not going to happen either. A graphic novel's kind of up in the air. We don't know if that's going to happen either, so if you do want to get these like issues, I would get them now. There's no real guarantee.
Right.
It's not like I have advanced solicitation for it quite yet, to my knowledge.
Right.
At least last time I checked. Now, I have not checked like today. But so I don't know what the future of this series is going to be beyond this point, because you were pointing out how Superman Year One seemed kind of less of a Black Label and just more like a just regular comic.
Well, in the hands of Frank Miller, you never know what to expect. I mean, he can do anything. So the thing is, like, you know, obviously Brian Azzarello, he's not repentant about what he did. I mean, his Twitter handle is like a eggplant emoji and a bat. So I mean, you don't even have to use the internet to know what's going on with that. So, you know, he's actually a pretty good writer. And the one thing I would say about these Black Labels, if you take a look at it, this is like an $8 comic.
Yep.
And I actually, because of the type of paper that's used, and, you know, to open it all the way, you're basically going to permanently crease this.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, if you're a persnickety collector, you're going to have to buy 2. Okay, it's one to read and one to just not touch ever, but so I like the format. So you got, like, you know, 3 times the size of a normal comic. You got a larger canvas. You know, you can be more immersive. There's no ads, you know, and so that's worth $8 to me, like, off the gate. With Superman Year One, it looked like just a bigger version of a comic book, but it looked like, I mean, it earned. I think we gave it a 9.6 when we reviewed it, but it earned like all of the moments in it, because the storytelling was so good. It felt mature. The art was so detailed. It felt like you were seeing 3 months of somebody's work put into a comic, as opposed to like 18 or 20 pages. And, you know, you're really into it, and then now you got a Got Milk ad. And then you get back into it a little bit, and now you see a Cheetos ad. You know, so like those moments, I think, hurt narratives and like some of the mainstream comics, like Marvel and DC, but usually don't see that in like the indies. But with the Black Label, I think if you're going to tell a mature story, you're going to charge someone $8 and give them a good value. I'm like totally in favor of it. I just don't want to see like the idea of this is mature content, so we're just going to gratuitously put stuff in there to make it look edgy, because that's like so cheesy.
Well, and there's always this debate of, like, me personally, I go the gambit of kind of fluffy things to really weird things, but I tend to avoid like anything that's going to be particularly bloody or gory, because I can't really handle blood very well. I get queasy real easy. So for me, I want these books to exist because I want people who want to have that kind of grittier feel to it can enjoy that. So like when there's so much controversy surrounding a book that is supposed to be an adult book, and then there's adult material in it, I feel like that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because like Image Comics has no problem. I mean, I don't even think you have to stretch your imagination very far to see full nudity in hundreds of Image comics.
Saga is a great book. It is a very adult book, and it's why I have not read it all the way through, because it's great storytelling, but like there's no whole bars. That's just how the book is.
Right.
And I feel like you always have to have that fine line between gratuitous and this is just what the narrative is.
Right,
this isn't I'm just inserting this to insert it.
Do you feel like the majors like are hamstrung by the fact that they consider themselves sort of the leaders in the industry, and they like people may have an expectation of what a Superman comic or a Batman comic is, and then they just can't diverge.
Oh, most definitely. Part of the reason why you don't see as many newer storylines going out of Marvel and DC is because they feel like they have to retell particular character stories repeatedly because they know that sells. They know that's what they're known for. If they just stopped printing Spider-Man comics, everyone would freak out. That's just how it is, and sometimes Marvel and DC are, in my opinion, restricted on what they can do because you have all of this history and everyone has these attachments to these characters, so whenever you try and change something, unless it's a what-if issue,
right,
everyone's going to lose their mind.
Yeah. Well, you know, they were all new characters at one point.
Exactly. Were all new characters at one point, but when you have people that put so much attachment to something, it's always going to get a little dicey when you try and change it.
Well, speaking of new characters, let's look at our number ones this week. I'll show them to you, and you tell people what they are.
At the end of your tether. I have not looked into this book quite yet. We only got a limited amount of copies, but it does look interesting. I know it's something supposed to be melancholy based because I read a description earlier today, but I'm not quite sure what's going to be going down with it.
Yeah, I flipped through it. It's about twice as thick as a normal comic.
Oh, wow.
No ads, and seems like a pretty interesting, high quality comic. It's got a great look to it.
All right, and then we're going to be continuing Age of Rebellion. It's going to be it's technically Age of Rebellion supposed to be the Rebellion, but they put in Darth Vader, which he kind of teeters the line between the Rebellion and the Empire, depending on what time period you're basing it off of. Anything Darth Vader based is normally going to be a pretty popular book, simply because it's Darth Vader. He's really cool, he's really menacing, and he's been a good guy, a bad guy, good guy, a bad guy. So a lot of these really cool one-shots are really neat because you can kind of get a little extra something that you might not have necessarily seen in the movies or in the novels because of just how it is in a comic format.
Yeah, I'm like low-key stoked for the new Star Wars movie this
Oh yeah.
All right.
And again, this is going to be more Darth Vader. There are multiple covers. He's an awesome character. This was, when I was a tiny Brie, this was one of my first crushes, so I'll probably end up grabbing it too.
All right, so we got
Peter Porker, The Spectacular Spider-Ham. This is actually the Spider-Man annual. They're going to be featuring Peter Porker. The way they shape this, I think it's supposed to be kind of an inquisitive thing to try and see if he should get his own series. I'm not sure, but that's what it kind of feels to me since they're putting this in as a Spider-Man book. But that's just my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. Then we have Spider-Man Reptilian Rage, excuse me. It's going to be another Spider-Man story where he's encountering ex-villain, and that just happens to be a very scaly friend. So it's going to be like a lot of other Spider-Man side stories where he kind of encounters the villain, squashes the villain, other things happen somewhere along the way. Soulfire, Aspen, I was into when I was younger. I have not been in a hot minute. It's saying it all starts here, but they've been putting Aspen comics of Soulfire out for quite a while, so I don't know if they're just going to completely redo all of their characters or what they're doing with that, or how that's supposed to world-wise go. All right.
I'm going to buy this one, I think.
Maryland Manor. I don't know as much about this one.
So basically, it's like the daughter of a president who like sees like the reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln and has parties at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's sort of a punk rock kind of a weird White House. I just want to see the White House like being totally trashed, like in a Beastie Boys kind of music video way. So
no, that makes perfect sense.
I mean, that looks like a Ramones cover to me.
Yeah, it does look. It looks, and you have those like very 80s aesthetic earrings that she is wearing. So, like, is it supposed to be based off in the 80s time-wise, or is it supposed to be a modern?
I think so. Well, I don't know. I'll find out. So if you're into comic covers, I mean, these are great comics too, so just because we didn't mention them. But our top 5 comic covers of the week, we got this action variant, Superman, super cool. We have this is a variant cover of Avengers, number 20.
It's the 25th anniversary. They're doing a bunch of fancy, fun covers.
Yeah, anything with like aquatic themes, like I just fall for. So,
oh yeah,
like,
it normally is a neat color palette.
So we got this current issue variant cover of Deadly Class, cover B there. This is really cool. This is a Flash cover. You know, he's not doing too well in that picture.
No.
But the background and sort of the pool of blood look like the Flash symbol. And then you got this super cool Power
yeah.
Rangers. Power Rangers is kind of like low-key become like a kind of interesting comic. This isn't really your kids' fantasy TV show kind of comic.
And this is supposed to be, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's supposed to be the first appearance of the White Ranger. Josh was talking to me about that earlier today.
Yeah, it's a new team.
Yeah, so this is a whole new thing. Shattered Grid was pretty popular last year. There were a lot of changes they were making kind of to the Power Ranger realm, because it's a realm now. That's really neat. So this is just adding on a whole new level.
All right, so before we go, our thank yous for the Comic Week side. We got Tay Downer, Nate Lanning, Robert Welton, Mason Radcliffe, and Eric Sandoval. Thanks for liking our video.
And then on the Alpha side, we're going to have David Scott Lane, Atlas Pear, Linda Redmond, and Joe Green. Thank you so much. We appreciate it when you are liking our things, because that just makes us feel so good inside.
We had a viewer on YouTube from Australia, Miss Megan Vach, or Miss Megan XOXOX. So she said good day, and she said that our picks last week helped her like curate what she was going to buy. You know, there have been quite a few Australian creators who've come from that comic scene to the American comic scene or the European comic scene. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite is probably Simon Hanselman, who does Meg Mag Owl, which is not for kids, but is very funny.
I really like a series, a creator, Kate O'Neill. She's a New Zealander. I actually have family that's from New Zealand. And she's done like Princess, Aquarian Cove.
My daughter
Tea
has
Society.
Yep.
Yeah, I super love those books because they're really nice. There's actually some substance to them, but they're very cute, and they're an all age read, but there's matter to it. It's not just kind of like I just put colors on a page and have fun. There's dialogues that are occurring in them, which is really neat.
Right, and then of course Nikki Greenberg did an award-winning adaptation of graphic novel, The Great Gatsby, a few years ago. It was really good. Mm-hmm. And of course my favorite Australian exports, Nick Cave from the Bad Seeds. So, but anyway, that'll wrap it up for us this week. I think we've gone on for like thanks, off screen. So yeah. If you got a moment and you want to win a free comic, I am giving away Walking Dead number 115, variant cover C, and the CGC 9.6. Just go to my contest page at Comic Week and enter. I just ask for your email address. I'm not trying to take all your personal information and sell it to information brokers. Just your email. so anyway, that does it for us for Comic Week and for Alpha Comics. I'm Charles. It's Brianna, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.